everybody. Happy HBK Wellness Wednesday. Master trainer and wellness enthusiast Kiona Leah back with you guys again. And this week we are working on more sugar busters. That's right. We did an update to the sugar busters routine on Monday night in class by adding things for people with more issues, whether they be joint issues, more birthday candles on the cake, more mobility issues that restrict their movement, whatever it is. And I was speaking with one of the students that falls into this category earlier in the week. And one of the things she asked about when looking for topics was digestive support. What about digestion? Poor digestion. What can I do? So I thought this ties in nicely with the idea of it's not just calories in versus calories out, which is a very old school way of thinking about our exercise and a very incomplete picture when it comes to our total health. It's not just about in and out. It's about what comes in, digestion, assimilation, elimination. When we want to work with our cravings, work on getting things down in the body, especially sugar, we want to make sure that we're digesting and assimilating what's coming in. So for many of us, myself included, this frequently means that we need extra help and extra support with our digestion. We can't just eat a healthy, balanced diet, even with doing that for whatever reason, whether it's low stomach acid, intestinal issues, lining, Crohn's, other problems, really bad microbiome and an imbalance, we don't get to digest our food properly. So there's a few things that we can do for that. And I've talked before about digestive enzymes and probiotics. But here's something that's really interesting about those. When we really look at working with the entirety of the microbiome, we want to make sure to keep things dynamic. Part of what a lot of studies are showing when it comes to looking at your microbiome, especially the microbiome of those of us in the more developed countries of the world, whether it's here in the United States or if you're in Europe and continents like that versus places like the African continent, the Indian continent, and some of Asia where it's less developed and the food is fresher, we have less diversity oftentimes in what we're eating as well, which means that that microbiome becomes less diverse. Some of the bugs in your gut need to be fed certain variety of foods, not just fruits and vegetables, but grains of various kinds, different meats of various kinds, different proteins of various kinds, and they need to not be super clean. Some of these actually benefit from having a little bit of dirt, as it were, like your grandma used to tell you, in your food and in your variety. So this can all make a difference. But for those of us who have very little access to that, have a harder time growing our own food where we can get some of that diversity and such like that, things like digestive enzymes and probiotics are essential. Now, the other big key with this, however, is that you have to change them up. Now, when I started working with my homeopath, we used to do this regularly because you have multiple different types of digestive enzyme in the body. You don't really just have one stomach acid. While you do generally just have that HCl pepsin, it comes in different blends and different balances. And again, the body responds to what you put in it. So when you eat a carbohydrate-rich meal, you secrete more enzymes that digest carbohydrates. When you eat a fat-rich meal, you secrete more enzymes that digest fat better, and the same with protein. So each time I bought a new bottle of enzymes from her, I would get a different enzyme. I would either get a protease, a lactase, I forget what the starch one was. I want to call it a starch ace, but it had a better name than that, or one for fats and adipase. So this really made a difference in starting to increase that amount. Now, you can get a broad spectrum, which is what the TTAP store used to sell, that supposedly does everything. You still want to change it up from time to time. My current nutritionist put me on this Enzyme Mix Pro from Apex Energetics. This does have to be given to you through a professional. Unfortunately, you can't just go out and buy this. If you have a good apothecary near you like I do, you might be able to get it there because you can work with the apothecary in the store directly. But I guarantee you, you can't go online and buy it. If you go to Apex's website, they're going to make you go through screening and work with one of their folks. Or if you go to another website like FullScript, you're going to have a prescription from your professional in order to get this. But it is fantastic stuff. I cannot tell you how much this stuff changed my life. However, I still vary how much I take, how often I take it, and the amount of usage with it. The other thing I end up doing is I pair it with that HCl pepsin. And again, this varies. How much? How often? I really change it up so I'm not always taking one pill of this or one pill of this or one of each or two of each or anything like that. Every single week, I change it up. As soon as something kind of goes awry, I'll change it up again. So that is helping with that digestion and that assimilation piece, because if you're not breaking the food down into those small particles, it really makes a big, big, big difference in how much you're able to absorb. The less you absorb, the more either gets stored as fat, sloughed off as sugar, or doesn't get processed at all and just sits in the gut, which causes other additional issues. So you want to make sure that when you're using those, either change up if you're using a targeted one, especially if sugar's your issue, you might be using an enzyme to help you digest sugar. If you're using that, you still don't want to ignore those ones for protein, fats, and milk and lactose and things of that nature. It makes a very, very big difference. The other big one that is probably even more important that you change up on a regular basis, and to be honest with you guys, I had forgotten this. I really had. It had been a long time, are your probiotics. There it is. There's the front of the probiotics. Your probiotics. This is key because probiotics in particular really are what helps balance out that gut microbiome that is going to balance all the rest of your health. And that microbiome is so critically imperative for controlling those blood sugar issues. In a lot of ways, some of the recent research that's out there, people know what type 1 diabetes is. That's that insulin dependence that you have to get those shots. Type 2 diabetes is when you're looking at that the body has become insulin resistant. The cells in the body are insulin resistant because of too much insulin flooding for one reason or another. Both of these because of that off-kilter microbiome, and it's not properly regulating, especially in type 2 diabetes, how much blood sugar is getting into the rest of the body, how much sugar is getting into that blood. But one of the things that new research is starting to show is what they are now kind of terming type 3 diabetes, which is also symptomatic of Alzheimer's disease, because that sugar imbalance in particular can be very, very, very detrimental to the brain itself. So it's even more critical to make sure that microbiome gets balanced out. You want to look at balancing it out so that you have more Bacteroidetes bacteria than Firmicutes bacteria. So you want to have those full spectrum probiotics, and you want to change them up. If you go on antibiotics, there are specific ones, and I'll link it below because I can't remember the name off the top of my head, and I apologize. I always say it wrong. I believe it's S. bacillus, but I will verify that and link it below. That is resistant to antibiotic strains. All the rest of them get killed off. You got to rebuild them once you're done. And frequently a prebiotic seed is what you're going to need first, but you still want to change it up. I used to use a lovely one by Renew Life I had one version that had 30 million bacteria in it and one that had 50 million. And again, I would swap them out. I just in the last month changed over to this one from Claire Labs. This one is available through the website. You don't need a prescription for it. It's a pain in my butt because it has to be refrigerated, which tends to annoy me. But you want to change it up, and you want to look for different strains of different bacteria every few months, especially if you work with a professional like I do. And of course, you guys know how much I highly, highly, highly recommend that. Definitely, 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 you want to go ahead and do that. Work with them to check on what you need, get you some of the testing you may need, either if it's a breath test that looks at what you've got, or if it's applied kinesiology to see what your body responds to. All of those are really fantastic ideas. At minimum, I would say, with a change of the seasons like we got coming up in about 10 days, it's a great time to go ahead and change up that probiotic. And if you're really noticing that your results are stalled in one way, shape, or form or another, that is another indicator. Change something up so that you start digesting, assimilating, and eliminating again. All right, you guys. Next week, we might look at more stuff like this because we are looking at more belly busters next week. I had a request for whittle the middle. So we're going to talk more about that, or we might talk about more of that lymphatic piece and some additional stuff we can do. I guess we'll find out what my nutritionist has in store for me this week when I go see her again on Friday. You guys know I always come back with great new information every time I go see the amazing Heather Ruth. But in the meantime, don't forget, comment below or send me a message to ask more questions. Like, share, subscribe to all my social media channels. And in the meantime, I'm Kiona Leah. I want to see you move, live, and thrive. So I'll see you on the next one.